Well, hi everyone, and this is a really great interview. It's let's get the date right, Friday the 30th of May. We've just come out of the final results, I think, of the Senate results from the election, the federal election we've just had. That election that will go down in history as the building block for the launching of the Communist Party in Australia, I guess. I don't know. I don't know where we go with it. But Johnny, it's great to have you back on.
Thanks, mate, and great to be back on with the newly elected senator.
The re-elected Senator Malcolm Roberts. Thank you, Senator. And we're not wearing coats because, well, we are wearing that in deference to you, but it's freezing cold where I am, and it's freezing cold where Johnny is. Great to have you
Lismore's a
back.
beautiful place, mate. Where are you, John? Down on the snowy?
Yeah, Tumut. It's very
Oh,
cold.
And very dry still.
Still dry. Yeah, hoping for a little. We had a little bit of rain, so that's good. So we're hoping for a little bit more, but we'll see what happens.
Well, one
well,
day,
Hoodie, it's very pleasing to be elected for the third time to the Senate, and candidates once they're elected usually talk about all the things that happened in the campaign, who they want to thank. That's not the issue. There are people that we need to thank, but the issue is not the campaign; it's the serving of people once you get in, and that's the key thing. And people tend to forget that.
yep, absolutely. And I know, look, there are a lot of people who are really disappointed that some of our favourite faces in the Senate aren't going to be there because we've become used to looking at Senate estimates with you and Jared Rennick, and we've seen Alex Zandick, Matt Canavan, all of these great players have been involved in stuff that we've all supported and we've all stood by and cheered. And those numbers are diminished, sadly, which is a great pity. But we have what we have, and you've always been a strong fighter. You've always been willing to stand up and say what you believe, and that's what we're going to do with you today,
That's going
Malcolm.
to continue, Hoodie.
That's the
I don't
way.
know any other way. Pauline is the same. Honesty and integrity, vital. She's the
Mate.
hardest working politician in the country, without doubt. People don't see a lot of what she does, but it's so wonderful to be back with her and to be working side by side. And having Tyron Whitten come in from WA, which is fantastic. We're the only party, apart from the Communist Party, Labor Party, that has increased its membership in the Senate.
Yeah,
The
well,
only one.
that's good. And
Sorry. Yeah.
you're going to have to work twice as hard now because you're going to be even more lonely as voices in there. But let's get on. The main reason we got you on, Malcolm, was to talk about. You put out a video recently about medical data, research data that's about to be destroyed in Queensland. Now, Johnny Larder, governments don't destroy data; they're flat out collecting it, aren't they? What on earth is a government wanting to destroy data for, unless it's scared that it will be incriminated?
Oh, well, look, this is an outrage. I mean, they could send you a parking ticket from 1975, but they want to destroy crucial data that blows the narrative wide open, and that's the real issue here, I think.
Yeah, as I've said on my posts, we've been chasing this issue relentlessly for the last few weeks, ever since I think it was Julian Gillespie brought it to my attention. And you got to acknowledge Julian, and he's always working as part of a team. He's built a team around him, and he's doing a fantastic job. But as we pointed out to Julian and publicly, if the data, and we can get into the details of the database, if the data showed that the COVID injections were wonderful, safe, and effective, wouldn't you want to release it if you're the government? I would. Now,
You wouldn't
if
want to
you
be
are
destroying it.
concerned, sorry,
You wouldn't want to be destroying it.
no, if you're concerned though that it might be negative, as many studies now are finding out around the world, you'd want to destroy it. So I'll leave that to everyone's imagination. But yeah, you can't destroy this. Hoodie, this is the most important study of its kind in the world, the most important globally. It's the largest study. It's got people who are injected by the COVID vaccines and people who were not injected with the COVID vaccines, or they're not vaccines, they're injections, experimental gene therapy based treatments that have never been properly tested. Experimental, as Greg Hunt said, the minister who introduced these shots. This will point to the way possibly of finding a cure for those who are hideously crippled for life or severely injured for life by the COVID injections. It will also point to the cures for those who are getting turbo cancers and who will get turbo cancers. There's no doubt about that. They will get turbo cancers in the next 5 to 20 years. This is a health crisis that could be averted just by keeping this data going.
Mm.
and accepting that we have a problem. There's a big pink elephant in the room that we're all ignoring. And the minute we realise that this is a possibility, we can start working on solutions.
Yeah, and Hoodie, it's very important that people understand we're working towards compensation. I've vowed that we will work towards compensation. You can't get compensation until there's awareness of the injuries. We're also working towards getting treatment and care for those injection injured. You can't get treatment until you know what you're dealing with. You can't know what you're dealing with until you do the research. So we've got, and you have an admission. There are too many people covering their ass because they were complicit in homicide. Hoodie, let's make that very clear. They were complicit in homicide. We've got Mark Butler, the current health minister, this morning being quoted on ABC, being recorded on ABC, saying, go in and get your next shot for COVID because it's spreading again. Well, and then he says, or the ABC said, there's another variety. Well, how do you know that they're going to be safe and effective with this variety? Because they haven't been safe and effective with any of the others. They've been dangerous. They've been ineffective. They've actually decreased people's defense, their immune system, decreased it. They've got negative efficacy and they've been killing people. And we've got the health minister, because it hasn't been admitted yet. You've got the health minister saying, go and get your next shot. Keep up to date with your boosters. Go and kill yourself.
But the uptake is down, isn't it, on boosters? Let's be honest. And I wonder why. Johnny.
Well, it must frustrate you, Malcolm. Here we are. We're in 2025, and look, at the end of the day, you're saying that there is homicide happening. We've got all this data from all around the world, and then you've got the whistleblowers, people like this Barry Young, who have been largely ignored. I mean, what he actually said, and the evidence that he divulged in New Zealand should be significant. Every police officer in Australia and New Zealand should be questioning why we're not going and having a look at what's going on here. I understand there's 18 staff at Bulli Hospital on the in down near Wollongong in New South Wales that have cancers that received the same batch. Now, there's been no denial of that. That's been out in the public for quite some time now. How is it that a sitting senator can say that there's murder going on? I've said it. Hoodie said it. I don't know how many other people have said it, but the police will not conduct an investigation.
Well, they need a complaint filed to conduct an investigation, but I think even that will be difficult. But Deborah, what's her name? Deborah, who's made the documentary on the COVID injections.
The witness
statement.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I've seen it. She's done an amazing job pulling that together.
She has.
So that'll give you the ammunition to make a complaint. But John, what you're saying is correct. This is homicide. Tens of thousands of homicides in this country, conducted, I believe, by some people knowingly, or at least willfully blind. And so what we've got is we've got to be pouncing on this all the time. And when the opportunity opens up, the crack opens up in their defense, we've got to pounce. Like Anthony Albanese in September, October 2023 said he won't be having the Royal Commission that he promised. Well, I could detect a huge change in the Senate. Even the Greens, even the Labor Party, even the Liberal Party were suddenly thinking this is wrong. So we pounced, and we worked at the people of Australia also thought it was wrong. You don't hide things by running away willfully, being blind to this threat. So we moved a motion requiring a Senate select inquiry to come up with the terms of reference for a possible future Royal Commission. And to my surprise, it got up because the other senators were incensed by what Albanese had done. And I've got to compliment Paul Scar, the chair, Liberal Party chair.
Great.
He did a major... Oh, you were there, Hoodie. Why am I telling you this story?
John and I were both there, Malcolm. Yeah, it was great.
That's right. So, I mean, they're the kinds of things we've got to pounce on. And our office now has become aware of that over the last few months of just how much is happening overseas. We've got RFK. My wife, quite frankly, she's an American and an Australian. She was disappointed. Where's RFK going? How come he hasn't banned the COVID shots? And I said, Christine, he's got to get the data in place. And I said, because they'll shoot holes in him, probably literally. if he's not careful. But they're trying to shoot him down because Big Pharma is all over the American Congress. You know, they're paying a lot of money to many of the Congress people. So what he's done is exactly that. He said he's going through the data. He's exposed the fact that the journals for medical journals, similar to the climate journals, science journals, are corrupt. They become tools for Big Pharma to get approval. That's all they are now. They're paid by Big Pharma to operate. People have to pay them to get their documents published. So what we've got now is RFK actually standing back, declaring that he is researching all of them, and they will be done in proper scientific medical trials.
We interviewed Senator Ron Johnson again for the second time on our program about 2 weeks ago. And we put the question to him, has RFK been effective enough? Peter McCullough has been quoted as saying, we're having him on the show as well very shortly, that he would have hoped that RFK and Trump would have done more, that they're not doing enough. But the fact is, Ron Johnson said to us that RFK is up against some very strong headwinds. The deep state is still very active in America, and they're doing everything they can to thwart him, and we need to be patient. But the good news today, as broadcast on CNBC in the States, the Moderna contract, $700 million worth of bird flu vaccinations, that's been cancelled by the US government. And their share price in 2021 was $370-something. It's now down to $26.97. So Moderna's going down the gurgler and everyone's talking about it. So they are getting somewhere, aren't they, Malcolm?
Very much so. And RFK can hardly just go in and make unilateral statements, unilateral declarations, take unilateral action, and then criticize Big Pharma for not having the data. He is going to do it properly and have it very well established. And once he reestablishes, Hoody, and this is extremely important, once he reestablishes the proper scientific process and the proper research process, then it'll look after itself. Because Big Pharma has corrupted that scientific process, hijacked it, and that's what's enabled them to get away with anything. They produce something and they just get it rubber stamped by the so-called scientific process, and that's complete rubbish. So what he's doing is he's going beyond the immediate, and he's looking to set up long-term future. Because remember, his objective is to make America healthy again. So that's the key thing, and they're fighting so many things that Big Pharma, Big Ag, Big Tech, Big Chemical are causing the obesity epidemic, the chronic illness epidemic. He's going after the real culprits, which are not just Big Pharma, but their allied mates and in big corporate.
Mm. And what can we do about people like Rainer Filmic that are in jail, Malcolm? I mean, you know, the international scene here is dreadful in relation to what's going on. Can advocacy from our end in our parliament maybe help someone like Rainer as it did with Julian Assange? I mean, essentially, you know, this guy's been now buried into a jail.
Yeah, and he's done a good job of exposing the con. I'll just write that down because I don't make statements unless I've got the facts. You know, we've been tardy in coming out in support of Rainer. I've been on his show in the early days, and he was doing a very good job. I don't know the details, and without knowing the details, I can't really take action. But we're trying to work on the more we can do in busting this open in Australia, John, the better it will be for Rainer, the far better. So I can't really influence much in Germany or in Europe, but I can influence things in Australia by having the facts, you know. So just you raising it today is going to help Rainer. But we have got to bust it open. And I want to compliment Ron Johnson, Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, on our first inquiry in COVID. And we were the first in the world to have an inquiry. It was a cross-party, multi-party, back in 2022, March 2022. And I can't remember if Ron was on that first one or he's on the second one, but he was in under a Democratic president, Democratic administration in America. He told me, and I'm sure this is not meant to be confidential, but he told me that once the Republicans get in under Trump, then he will be chairman of a very powerful committee, and he will address this. That's exactly what he's doing. He's addressing it very, very carefully. Again, not making unilateral statements, to just laying it down so that they can get the facts out, the data out, because we have got to restore the scientific process. The scientific process, John, was absolutely essential for developing freedom. Up until that time, up until the development of the scientific process, the people who controlled, people whose decisions prevailed, were those who had the money, those who had the religious power, the churches, those who had the economic power, those who had the property power, those who had basically they controlled the shots. You know, the lords and so on in England, for example, in England, they just use their force, their bullies. They use their basically their thugs, physical force, to control people. Once the scientific process came up, it was turned over to objective data that controlled decisions, and that liberated humans. Then we had the most dramatic freeing up of people, liberating of people in the Western world from 1850 Industrial Revolution through to about 1996 when John Howard came to power and reversed the human progress fundamentals. I mean, he really did in this country. So we've had 140 years of freedom thanks to the scientific process, and they've bottled that up and destroyed it and suppressed it and criticized it and hijacked it. And now we've got to get that back. That's fundamental.
Well, I think there's no greater example of that than the letter to Andy with Dr. Tess Lawrie. I mean, there was a perfect example of data being manipulated and things being spoken of that were incorrect, factually changed to get an outcome.
It's quite common now, mate. They say the science says, or the experts advise. It's complete rubbish. That's just an appeal to authority. Put the word science in front of it and people swallow it. Put the word expert in front of it and people swallow it. That is the complete reverse of science. That's the bypassing of science. That's the suppression of science, because they're appeals to authority and they're false authority, but they're painted as authority. Yeah. What I say to people is, give me your data. Give me your data, and not just your data, John, but your empirical scientific data and observations within a logical scientific framework that proves cause and effect. Until you have that, don't talk.
Senator Roberts, on the data that's about to be destroyed in Queensland, do we know if that process has started yet? And also, what chance have we got of having that stopped? Is there an injunction or something that could be brought down?
Well, what Julian Gillespie is doing, and again, I've got to compliment him for his work and the people around him. He goes out and he builds a nice team, and then he does the research. An injunction costs money, as you know. It costs a lot of money. And he is prepared to raise that money. I've told him a few weeks ago that I'm willing to help him raise that money. I'm willing to help him publicize any fundraising. But he believes it can be stopped beforehand. First of all, he's sent letters to, and as have we, to the Queensland Premier, to the people overseeing it. I can't remember the name of the Queensland. That's right, Metro North, Queensland Health Metro North, threatening them, saying they must not destroy this data. Now that has a chance of working. I've sent letters to the Queensland Health Minister, the Queensland Attorney General, the Queensland Premier. I've received acknowledgement. I've tried to talk to David Crisafulli, the Premier, has not returned my messages, nor my messages to his office, text messages. So the next thing is to get letters from people involved in the study demanding that they meet the commitments that they entered the study and preserve the data. So that will be very, very powerful. If that fails, and Julian's very confident it'll work, then we can always raise money for an injunction, a court-ordered injunction, but that's going to be very expensive. So at the moment we're relying upon contractual obligations from Queensland Health Metro North. They're the ones who are overseeing the data.
So this data, it's actually government data?
The government can control whether or not it's destroyed. But it's actually, yes, it is government data. And I've got to say that our staff have praised this Queensland Health for their quality of their data. Apparently, they're very, very good at data. So what we've got to understand is that the samples, there's more than just data. I fell short of the mark a minute ago. It's more than just data. It is samples of blood, saliva, urine, fluids, and they're being kept on hold. They're being researched. And we understand that there are some major papers authors who are trying to publish these papers. They might be very embarrassing for the government. So, and some people are saying, well, how come Crisafulli and the LNP is protecting Labor? Both the members of the Uni Party, the Labor Party and the Liberal Party, were complicit in the homicides that were caused by the COVID shots and the mismanagement and fraud of the COVID response. So they've both got motive, John. But I hope that answers your question.
Is there some Commonwealth law, or can one be introduced that protects that data? I mean, surely state governments should not be just allowed to get rid of data that effectively would, funnel into the Commonwealth, because I can see what's going to happen here, Malcolm. New South Wales Health keep very good data as well, and I think they've been lauded as being one of the the gatekeepers of some of the greatest data in the world in relation to this COVID madness. I can see that this will filter everywhere. I mean, they'll be at the shredder for the next 6 months.
Yeah, it's always very tempting to try and bring in a Commonwealth law, but I'm very, very wary of that, John. Our constitution was set up as a federation of sovereign independent states. So we've got 6 constitutions. Each of the states has a constitution. We've got a federal constitution, which is number 7, which is still intact, by the way, despite the internet rumors. But the reason that was set up, it was an idea pinched from America, which has a similar structure: competitive federalism. The idea is to minimize the central government and put most of the power for doing government services, back with the states. And if one state comes up with a better idea of doing something, then people move to that state, investment funds move to that state, and the other states have to try and meet it or better it. And so that's very, very important. If you like, it's a marketplace in governance. It's wonderful. It is absolutely wonderful if it was working correctly. What's happened is the federal government, just like in the States, just like in the United States, has taken over more and more of the duties or duplicated them. It was a policy in the One Nation election campaign. It's still our policy to send back the power to the states, cut the federal bureaucracy where it's duplicating the states, like places like health, places like education, places like Aboriginal affairs. They're massive duplication. So what happens is the people have no real direct accountability when you've got both parties, both state and federal, responsible. We've got to get rid of the federal government interference, put it back to the states, and let competitive federalism take its course. So I'm reluctant to interfere with federal, even if I could.
Look, at the end of the day, Greg Hunt said this was an experiment, and I don't think there's any doubt that this is. Now, if the TGA was fed,
it's homicide above all.
Well, above all, it is, exactly. How can the TGA, as part of a government, federal government institution, allow data in regard to these jabs be allowed to be destroyed in an experiment? It just beggars belief. I mean, the TGA should be disbanded just on that one effort. I mean, they should be taking out injunctions. The TGA should be taking out the injunctions to say, no, listen, we approved that provisionally. We need that data. It has to come back to us.
That's a great point, John.
It is a good point, but there's one thing that stops that, John. You've forgotten that the TGA, APRA, TAGI have been bought and controlled by Big Pharma. They're instruments of Big Pharma. Our policy in One Nation, we were the only ones to stand up and identify $90 billion of waste and duplication in the federal government. We're the only ones. No one else talked about it. One of the things we wanted to do was get rid of the TGA. And one of the things we're still working on is getting rid of the TGA. That is complicit in this homicide. It's enabled the homicide. It's driven the homicide. Whether it's willful blindness or deliberate, that's a matter to be still seen. But you've got APRA. AHPRA, recently there was a conference in Sydney of prominent doctors in this country who were speaking out against AHPRA because they want to put the throttle back on AHPRA. We need to get rid of AHPRA and let the states get back to control themselves, not this so-called national law, which is a furphy. We want to get independent control of the TGA, get rid of the TGA. We want to disband the TGA. Instead of having an independent body that's difficult to scrutinize, we want individual health ministers to be responsible, mostly at the state level, for doing the proper assessments. There were no assessments done by the TGA. As you know, the head of the TGA at the time the COVID injections were provisionally approved was Professor John Skerritt, and he retired in April of last year, and 8 months later took a job on became a board member of Medicines Australia, which is a big pharma operative lobbyist for big pharma in this country. I mean, they're like this. They're like this. And so scrap the TGA is far better than trying to deal with the TGA, because the TGA will cover its backside, as we've shown repeatedly in Senate estimates, as will AHPRA. They'll deny the truth. They'll tell lies. There's no use for them. Get rid of them.
Wow. There's so much going on, and it's going to continue. Now, I'd like to talk matters political.
Yep.
This election result has flabbergasted a lot of people. I mean, I think Albanese
talking about Labor.
Yeah, the Labor achieved, actually, if you look at the numbers, about 26% of people voted for them. That means that 64% of people didn't vote for them. That points to a whole bunch of issues with the electoral system and the way we govern. But there's been a lot of dissecting of the election campaign and how it was conducted by independents and other freedom candidates and parties. There seemed to be a lot of, once again, division of votes. A lot of votes were just being chopped up and sent in one direction or another. We had a whole bunch of people being told by certain influencers not to vote at all, which was catastrophic in my view. And there is a massive cry now from everyday people that we're talking to. What have we got to do to get the people on the outside of the uni party to stand together as one in some form of a cooperative where they cooperate with each other to bring about a result that gives us free and fair access to government? What have we got to do to get One Nation to be in cooperative, if you like, with some of the other parties to come together as one group?
Well, from the last sentence you just stated, John, Hoodie, you've implied that One Nation hasn't cooperated. We have worked with Katters. Pauline and Bob Katter got together a couple of years ago and went on a tour of Queensland, Western Queensland in particular, and we worked with them. We offered Jared Rennick the opportunity to join One Nation because, let's face it, when Jared Rennick is campaigning against us, it splits our vote. That's it. And let me say right up front, it's been vindicated by this election that the micro parties and the pop-up parties like Trumpets of Patriots, they have split the vote, as you said.
Yep.
One Nation offered to work with every one of them. We made approaches to every one of them. I had a member of the Libertarians come to me and say, I wish, just before the election, 2 days before the election, senior member of the Libertarians come to me and say, I wish we'd put you for second, Malcolm, because we've been so dismayed by the behavior of the other micro parties. So dismayed. They've been fighting each other. So I said on a program on air, Joel Jamal's program, that if Jared Rennick is put number one on people's how to vote cards, it could knock both of us out. But if I'm put number one and Jared put number two, it could get both of us in. That's the numbers prove that I was right. That's exactly what I said. But what would One Nation know? The other thing to remember is that Clive Palmer's party, Trumpets of Patriots, lied about One Nation. They sent out text messages saying One Nation is evil. One Nation is evil. Repeatedly, they said that from their number one candidate, who was touted to be the Prime Minister, who got a fraction of the vote our candidate did get in her seat. So and Family First also did some things that I don't think should be seen as respectful. I said before the election, and it has been vindicated, that One Nation is the only party capable of getting seats, extra seats in other states in the Senate. And we've already done that. We have got an extra seat in WA. We've got so close, so close in Victoria, South Australia, New South Wales, and Tassie to getting the 6th seat. So close. We're the only ones with a viable shot. I said that. Now, what that led to, John and Hoodie, is that instead of the micro parties and the pop-up parties taking aim at the LNP and at the Labor Party and at the Greens, they took aim at One Nation. They wanted to destroy Nation. That was the candidates. What? 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 Oh, come here. Give me a hug. Give me a hug. Oh. I want you to meet Sheena. Come here.
Hello,
I want you to
Sheena.
meet Sheena. She has done a power of work. She's the office manager of Senate.
She's
just given me this.
Keep going. We can only see part of it.
We got Senate in New South Wales.
Wow.
That's 4. So what were we talking about? I've forgotten.
Well, yeah.
Thank you, Sheena. Thank you. Where were we?
You heard it here on Club Grubbery.
Where were we? Yeah, so people in
You
the
might
parties,
need a Bex and a lie down.
No, that's good news for the country. People in the micro parties and the pop-up parties, instead of shooting at the LNP and the Labor Party and the Greens, they tried to kill One Nation. One of the micro parties leaders even said that publicly on his social media, that he is one of his followers held him accountable and said, "You're trying to destroy One Nation." And he said, "Yes, he is, because it stands between him and getting a place in the Senate himself." So we can't have this, John. Now, what they did was they painted us as the only one not working with people in the pop-up parties and the micro parties. We were the only one who actively tried to get and give opportunities to the other parties. And another we've got 2. We've doubled our representation in the Senate. We've gone from just Queensland to New South Wales and WA. We came very close in Tassie, South Australia, and Victoria just missed out. So we're the only ones capable. And we offered to work with people. And they basically told us to pack up and go away. They'd take shots at us.
How did Lee Hansen go in the end? It was pretty tight, wasn't it, with her and Jackie Lambie?
It was, and I've got to say, I've known Lee not closely, but I've known her from about 2016. She's a highly impressive woman. One of the things I love about Lee is she's like a mother. She hasn't been tainted by university. You know, I've been. Her mind is still clean, very clear thinking. You know, I've got a degree, an honours degree in engineering from one of the top engineering schools in the world, Queensland, and I've got a Master of Business Administration from the University of Chicago, one of the top 3 schools in the world. I got my basic education from my parents. I got my basic education in life from working as a coalface miner, because after I graduated from uni with an engineering degree in mining engineering, I decided I better go and learn something. Lee, what I'm saying is, she's a very intelligent person, very forthright person. She can speak really well. She's very sincere. She'd be a wonderful, wonderful senator, but she got knocked out by Lambie. But it was pretty close, very close.
Oh,
and you know, you look at the she had weeks to prepare. She'll be working now in Tassie to get ready to run in 2028.
I'm told the Hoodies Heroes Network in Tasmania went all out to help her and get her across the line. And I want to thank all the Hoodies Heroes groups in Tassie. They answered the call when we interviewed Lee, and they were magnanimous in their support of her. So well done to that. And I'm giving Hoodies Heroes a plug, because people are starting to join in greater numbers, and we've made the whole onboarding process a whole lot easier. You just a tick to agree to be part of the group for the right reasons and abide by the rules, and you're in. So get along to Hoodies Heroes and join up, because we can make a difference.
Can I give a plug to a few people, Hoodie?
For sure.
First of all, the Australian Electoral Commission. This has been the fastest processed election in our history. There will be audits because I initiated legislation that led to the audit, and we had the first audit back in 2022. But the AEC's done a phenomenal job. There'll always be things you can pick holes at, but the logistics effort, the human leadership effort is phenomenal. It's very hard for people to understand that. I want to thank all the people who voted, because this is democracy. Democracy is essential for human progress. And if you didn't vote, you basically handed the government over to Labor and Liberal to continue their uniparty. It's very important to vote. I want to thank all the candidates, including those who ran against me, because by participating in democracy, we're keeping our freedoms alive. I want to thank my running mate in Queensland, Gina Cord, on the Senate ticket. I want to thank all the participants in the electoral process, the volunteers, the scrutineers, the people who handed out how to vote cards, even the competitors, because they make it an active democracy. I want to thank our One Nation headquarters, because it's a very, very skinny operation. We don't have a lot of money, and honestly, it would take me a while to explain to you just how much they've done. Phenomenal. I want to thank my wife and family for their honesty as well as their support. I want to thank Pauline Hanson for having complete faith in me and for her honesty. She is the hardest working, and I mean this sincerely, hardest working politician in the country. Most people don't see many of the things she does. James Ashby, I want to thank him for his honesty and his support. The party would not be where it is but for James coming in with Pauline. I want to thank my team, and James Ashby I found to be completely honest. Every dealing I've had with him, and same with other people who said the same thing. I want to thank my Senate office team for serving the people, because I don't think campaigns win elections or win elections. I think it's a service that people can see, and that's come. I don't work as a senator. I work as a senator within a team. It's not Malcom Roberts out front, it by himself. It's the team that's with us, and what my team has done here is over the last 6 years, Hoody and John, they have served the people. So they've gone, and then during the campaign, they conducted themselves with complete integrity. And I want to thank the voters of Queensland and Australia for their faith in me. This is the third time I've been elected. So I will continue my work as a servant to the people of Queensland and Australia. That's what I'm here for. The campaign is one thing. We want to thank everyone who was involved in the campaign, regardless of which party you're from. But the main act is not to thank the people who were involved in the campaign. The main act is to serve people once we get in, and that's what we'll be doing.
Yeah, well done. Malcolm, do you think it's probably a bit of an odd collaboration, but is there any chance with the Greens selecting Larissa Waters as the new head, that she may well be interested in things about COVID? Is there an appetite there, do you think? Can you work with her?
Two questions there. One Nation has shown that we will work with anyone. We have worked with the Greens at times when they're aligned with the national interest, which is not very often, but we have worked with the Greens. And some of them have been quite decent. David Shoebridge on defence, for example, is very, very good. He's helped us. We've helped him. Peter Wish-Wilson is amenable to certain things. Nick McKim on finance issues. They're very good. But the Greens are the most destructive force in Australian politics, John. They're anti-human in their approach. And I want to make it very clear that I have some admiration for Larissa Waters. She's very, very capable. She's very, very cunning. She's got a beautiful face and beautiful smile, very photogenic, but that hides a black heart, in my opinion. And I think the Greens, they used to be anti-Big Pharma. They're now captive to Big Pharma, and they push Big Pharma's barrow. I think they'll be complicit in continuing the hiding of the homicides because they were all in on pushing the COVID injections. They were all in many of the suppression of liberties and rights. So I don't see any hope from the Greens in that aspect. There's one maybe a little bit of hope. If you corner the Greens, they sometimes respond. But we've got to get a way of cornering the Greens based on sheer power of evidence, and that's what we're working on. Climate, for example, I've challenged Larissa Waters 3 times to debate publicly. once in 2010, Thursday, I think it was, October the 7th, 2010, publicly. I challenged her to a debate on the climate science and to a debate on the corruption of climate science. She jumped to her feet, absolutely jumped to her feet. I've never seen her move so quickly, saying, I will not debate you. I challenged her again in the 2016 election campaign. No response. Challenged her in the Senate along with Di Natale, the leader at the time. They will not debate me. Repeatedly repeated that challenge to debate. They won't debate me. They don't like data. They've actually complimented me for my reliance on solid data. Complimented me, yet they won't do it themselves. Wow. She's a lawyer. She should know about evidence. So I see no hope. They're hijacked by globalist ideologues. You know,
ideology.
No, not ideology. Ideologues.
Yeah,
people who are hijacked by ideology.
Yeah.
And there's very little hope for the Greens other than a couple of people when they want to stand up on a particular issue. They're good on Julian Assange. They worked with us on Julian Assange, and I have to give them credit for that. So COVID, though, Big Pharma, they're under control of Big Pharma. The other thing, though, I've just realized they've been given a very strong lesson in this election. They've got to pull their heads in to some extent. But Larissa Waters, in my opinion, according to the newspaper reports, is only pretending to show that they've been taught a lesson, because they've gone away from conservation. They've gone away from environment. They're now purveyors of the destruction of our environment thanks to wind turbines and solar panels blanketing our country. They're now destroyers of the environment, and they've become ideologically driven, and they're just tools for the globalists. The globalists from the United Nations and the World Economic Forum introduced policies through the Australian Greens. They put it on the table here. The media backs them up. Then the Labor Party is forced to follow or chooses to follow. Then the Liberal Party follows. That's how they get their globalist policies in here, whether it be COVID or environment. The destruction they cause to humanity come through the Greens.
I go back a couple of questions, Malcolm, as we talk about where to for the next 3 years, because, as I said, a lot of people are calling for some kind of unity amongst the minor parties, and something needs to give, because we have to break this uni-party monopoly in some way or another. And what can we look for, or what can we do to effect a change where we do, like Don Chipp said at the beginning when he set up the Australian Democrats, we need people like yourself and others in that category to keep the bastards honest. And at the moment, even with 3 senators One Nation has, and the absence of the others that have gone, it's going to be a tough gig. How do we break that monopoly, and what can we do over the next 3 years to do that?
Well, it's now 4 senators with New South Wales and WA coming in. Yep. So that's good. But that's still not going to alter the status of the Senate, because what will happen is the Labor Party will govern with the Greens in the Senate, so which could make them subject to blackmail from the Greens in the Senate, although they've shown with a couple of decisions that they're going to say to hell with the Greens at times, or they'll govern by bypassing the Greens and just do deals with the LNP, the Liberal National Party coalition, and the Labor Party, as they did many times on crucial bills. We've got to remember, as you pointed out, that the Uni Party, which has got 2 wings, the Labor Party and the Liberal National Coalition, govern this country together. They introduce many bills together. They develop the research for bills together, word the bills together, and then put them in, and then pretend to be on opposite sides. So what we've got to remember is that's what we're up against, exactly what you pointed out. The key, though, that's missing is a realization that our Constitution is the only constitution in the world on which the people got to vote before it was introduced. Before the British Parliament enacted the Constitution for our country, the people got to vote. The Constitution itself says that the supreme governing entity is the Constitution, and the supreme governing body is the people. The people are the only ones who can change the Constitution. What's happened in this country is we have become very fat and sloppy because we're blessed with resources. We haven't had to do much. We've barely had to defend our country. The Yanks came and saved us in the Second World War, and so we've come to get this lucky Australian mentality that says we're so good as just good old Aussies that the world will save us. No, it won't. They don't give a damn about us. We have got to save ourselves. And that means all the people have to fulfill their role and have to stand up. Democracy isn't about having a vote every 3 years. Democracy is, number one, about holding members of parliament accountable, John and Hoodie, holding members of parliament accountable, visiting their offices, demanding to see them. They work for the people, not the other way around. Writing letters and paper, calling them up, holding them accountable. Don't worry about emails too much, because unless there's a flood of emails, they don't take any notice of them. So it's stirring them up. It's making sure that people share information with each other, because let's face it, Hoodie, some of the freedom bubble is just a bubble. It's tiny. It's tiny, tiny, tiny. But when we speak to our friends, when we speak to our workmates, when we speak to our clubmates, when we speak to our families, we can spread that, so it's not just a matter of one of the things we've got to stop in this country is people automatically turning to politicians and say, what can you do? That's good. But most of the politicians are ignorant, gutless, and stupid. They won't stand up. So what we have to do is force them to stand up, and that means putting pressure on them. Go to your elected member of parliament and say, you work for me. It's not the other way around. I want you to do this. We've had many successes. Cash ban bill, we beat. Wasn't Malcom Roberts, the senator, that beat that. It was my office getting in touch with members, the grassroots members of the Liberal and Labor parties, and putting pressure on the senators so that it was consigned to the dustbin of history. But they'll be back, so we need to do it again. Same with the misinformation and disinformation bill, the censorship bill, Hoodie. That was, we put a targeted campaign about that for about 12 to 15 months. We had a conference in Brisbane that got some prominent media players to denounce the misinformation and disinformation bill, which was started by Morrison and then reintroduced by Albanese. So they're working together. But that was defeated because the people stood up and said, go to hell with your misinformation, disinformation bill. So what I'm saying is we need the people to be more active. We need the people to be vocal. We need the people to be physically active. I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about visiting your offices of your MPs. They're your representatives. I work for you. You do not work for me. And it's right to hold the MPs accountable. Their number one job is to listen and do what you tell them to do. Do what the people tell them to do. That's fundamental.
Malcolm, I see that, and I think a lot of people would probably think this. You've been given a real opportunity, One Nation. I mean, we've got a Liberal Party in disarray, a National Party at sixes and sevens. They've chosen the wrong leadership. They're at risk of being, annihilated at the next election as well. But I think there has been criticism of One Nation at times. So is it a time to reflect? I mean, you've had some very high profile people, especially in the state ranks, defect. There's been numerous criticisms of Pauline not being as active as others in Senate estimates and the like. I mean, do you sit around the table and say, well, we need to maybe listen to the people and do things a bit differently going forward?
We reflect on everything we do. Everything we do. If it meets opposition from someone or some group, a credible group, then we reflect on that. Now I've got to correct something you said, John. We've had prominent people leave. We've had prominent people that we have booted out. One of the things that we have not done very well is that when we've done something controversial, booting someone prominent out of our party because they're not complying with the principles. One Nation has a very simple philosophy. Is it in the national interest? If it is, do it. If it isn't, don't do it. When people break that, then we take care of it. It is not an autocracy. Pauline is one of the strongest things with Pauline is her listening skills. Same with me. Same with Ashby. James Ashby is a very good listener. And we've got the courage to do what people want us to do, even if it's a minority, if it's the right thing to do. So I just want to correct that. We've had some people leave, but the majority have been booted told things that they don't like.
Well,
So
maybe that's
we
part
do
of the
reflect.
problem, is that you're not really selling yourselves that well. Is it a case that, you're not explaining things when things happen? I mean, a perfect example was the bill that you abstained from. I mean, there was a lot of conjecture around that at the time, and maybe the criticism was that you didn't defend yourselves as or maybe the media didn't allow you to. Maybe that's more the case. I don't know, but is it a case of really not selling yourselves as actively as you should for the great things you do?
Pauline's never been interested in selling ourselves. We don't sell ourselves. We take action, and that's it. And we go and listen. That's it. Wherever we go in Queensland, people will say, "Keep going, mate." Literally say, "Keep going, mate." I've had people who say, "I used to hate you. I used to hate One Nation. I now vote for you." Our vote went up because people know that we fulfill our beliefs. We work in accordance with our principles. People know that. Now, that the hate crimes bill was not a speech bill; it was a hate crimes bill. There were many lies told about told by minor party opponents of ours on that. What we normally do is, when we've got something that we think has got some merit, but it's a sloppy bill and a dangerous bill, we oppose it, or we explain that in a speech in the Senate. We like some aspects of this bill, but we can't support it because of this. That's why we're going to abstain. We didn't get that opportunity. And John, I note that you said we didn't explain it afterwards. We did explain it afterwards. We explained it. Pauline explained it the next day. I explained it the next Tuesday in the Senate adjournment speech. I explained it the next day on social media. We explained it for about a week. But the lie that, you've heard the story from Mark Twain or Winston Churchill. A lie gets halfway around the world before truth can put its pants on. And a prominent senator, told a blatant lie. When I confronted him with it, he acknowledged, and then I said, "What you need to do is take it down." He acknowledged that. It's still up there. That lie was you can't do much about that. We then chose to not put any dirt on people because it was leading up to an election campaign. We didn't want to put dirt on any of the minor parties, any of the micro parties or the pop-up parties. And so we let it go. But we did explain it, mate. We did explain it over a week. I explained it when I was asked a question by that same senator in public. So there is always a time for reflection, but maybe what we should have done is, because we couldn't speak in the Senate because the Labor Party and the Liberal Party guillotined it together, maybe what we should have done was just oppose it because it was guillotine and all the rest of it. Maybe we should make a rule that basically says, if we can't explain ourselves, we'll oppose.
But is there a strategy in relation to Pauline not being so active in the estimates? I mean, I recall when she was speaking to those Pfizer representatives. I mean, that was some of the best stuff we've probably seen. But in my opinion, we're not seeing enough of it.
Well, that's as I said, she's the hardest working member of Parliament there is. Some of the things that she does behind the scenes are just amazing. She's saved the country many, many times. She saved the Liberal Party when they were in government from their own stupidity. She does. Remember, she's leader of the party as well. She does so much work behind the scenes for the One Nation Party, for the people of Australia, and she works with the Labor Party and the Liberal Party because they all respect her. They mightn't like her, but they respect her. And the Liberal Party used to come to us sometimes when under Morrison and Turnbull and say, "What do you think about this bill?" And we would say, "Mate, it sucks for this reason." And we'll be opposing it. And then we would help them to improve it. So people don't see that, but she is so influential in Parliament, and she does so much work in Parliament. People who are are telling lies about her and smearing her sometimes have an objective to knock her out. She's coming up for election in the next election. People would love to see her knocked out. Her opponents would love to see her knocked out, including in the micro parties, including the major parties. But as you now know, we've got 4 senators. We're the only ones who grew their parliamentary representation. But I can assure you, we are never cocky. James Ashby, Pauline, tear things apart. We're highly critical of each other when we screw things up, because we do make mistakes. That's the other thing, mate. We admit it when we do make mistakes. It may have been a mistake to have abstained without explaining the hate crimes bill, why we abstained. So that may have been a mistake.
How's the democratic structure of the party work? I mean, do you have branches, and how do you handle pre-selections and all that, or is it just done internally?
At the moment, it's largely internal, but we listen to people in that electorate. So we have a fairly democratic process, but it's not democratic in the sense that it's a vote. But that's where we're headed, Hoodie. Now, people need to remember, we're not running away from scrutiny. What happened was that Pauline Hanson is the only party leader in this country's history, the only political prisoner. She's the only one to have been jailed, the only one. They have done things to knock her out for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
First of all, they tried to knock her out by jailing her. And what happened there, it's very important to understand this background, is that Peter Beattie enacted legislation which then enabled John Howard's mob to jail her. And that was found to be wrongful jailing, and she was released on appeal. Then they did something that was hideous. They accused her of being racist. She's not racist at all. I'm very, very proud to stand beside her. When I got into the Senate, 3 Aboriginals from Northern Territory came to see me in the car park as I was heading into the office just after I got elected into the Senate. And they said, "Where's Ms. Hanson?" And I said, "She'll be here in a minute. Come inside and have a seat, and we'll get you a cup of tea or coffee, and you can wait for her." I said, "Where are you from?" And they said, "We're from the Territory." "Oh, and what brings you here?" "She's the only one who understands, mate. She's the only one who supports the Aboriginal people properly. That's fair dinkum."
Yeah.
So she's not racist. I mean, her party name is One Nation, but the reason they made up the lies, and the media was complicit with both Labor and Liberal, was that once you're branded a racist in this country, it's very, very difficult to remove. People are now waking up over the last couple of elections to the fact that we're not racist. Now, the other thing that they did, our opponents did, because remember, Pauline Hanson took off overnight in the polls in Queensland in 1998. 23% of the vote, 11 members of parliament. What Labor and Liberal did was then infect our branch meetings with plants from the Labor Party and Liberal Party, and they destroyed our branches. They took over control of the party and destroyed the party. So Pauline's been very, very wary of branches. So she's sidelined branches, official branches. We've tried regional committees, but what we're going to be going back to now that the party is established and got its feet on the ground, and we've got so much respect for the party, we will now be going to branches in the near future. So stay tuned. We already have branches in democratically controlled branches who are highly influential in each of the states. So we have state branches. We will be moving to electorate branches in the near future. But Hoodie and John, that's not something you just say, let's have a branch. You've got to set it up properly so that it's structured. So just like the election process in Australia, it's got to be done properly to protect the party, to protect the branches, to protect the country. And there's a review going on right now. Even though we were successful in the election, there's a review going on right now, a very deep-seated review with the candidates invited to give objective feedback, confidential feedback. The letter will be going out recently in the near future. All the candidates, volunteers will be given an opportunity to contribute to the structure of the party in the future. They'll be collecting those ideas and then making recommendations to Pauline and James and the national executive. And we do have a democratic process in that national executive works on democratic principles. It's not just a Pauline show. But the reason why the Constitution was changed was we had people infiltrating us. And I can go back to when I first got in the party. The secretary of the national executive was developing a new constitution, and I walked up to him and said, "Hey, mate, can you tell me if this constitution will give Pauline complete power?" And he said, "Yes, it will." And I said, "Great, that's what we need, because people are trying to hijack this party. There's a history of that, because we're effective." So now there'll be an opportunity to take it back to real democracy by involving more people in a structured way, but that's only come because people now can see One Nation is here to stay.
Well, let's hope it. Let's hope we can do something to disarm this uni party. That's just an Hegelian dialectic. They both get together to create a problem that they both want the same solution for, and they're all sleeping in the one bed. They're all eating in the same restaurant, Johnny. It's just crazy. We've got to do
Well,
something.
Agenda 21, Pauline called that out in 1996, mate. 1996. We've been calling out the World Economic Forum. You know, I was told by a very good conservative, who I won't mention his name, very highly respected. He sends newsletters out around the world. He called me up and said, when I just ended the Parliament in 2016, called me up and he said, do not mention Agenda 21. First speech, I said, we've got to pull out of the UN and we've got to pull out of Agenda 21 because you can't do it by running away from it. You've got to confront them. World Economic Forum, World Health Organization, we have slammed them. We were the first to come out with a video anywhere in the world on the World Health Organization's pandemic treaty. We don't run away from it. We're the only ones that actually take the fight up to them. And we've mentioned the CIA's involvement. We've mentioned the Bilderberg Group. We've mentioned the Trilateral Commission. These bodies are hideous.
And actually, as we mentioned with Senator Ron Johnson, and we made the point that realistically, this WHO is now putting the ANZUS alliance at real risk. I mean, we've got the New Zealand government essentially flagging that they're not interested in this pandemic treaty and giving away their sovereignty. We've got the US pulling out of it, but our mob are going over there to basically get in bed with this organisation. It's just incredible, isn't it, Malcolm?
It is, and a couple of things I'd mention. You talk about New Zealand, and I'm glad you raised that because Winston Peters had a remarkable change of approach. He was pretty fiercely independent. Then he went with Jacinda Ardern in a coalition government. And then he was not happy with the way they handled COVID, but he didn't really know much about it, apparently. One day he was with one of his MPs and they attended a protest in Wellington, the capital, outside Parliament House.
New Zealand Doctors SOS.
I don't know if it was run by them, but it was back in 22, 23, somewhere around there. But what he actually learned, and this is full credit to Winston Peters. So he's independent with Labor, and then he became independent, but he learned of the truth that so many people are being crippled and dying from the COVID shots. Straight away then, he realized that. He then started working towards exposing that and doing something about it. And now, under Jacinda Ardern, Labor Party had a sham Royal Commission going. He said one of the conditions to his joining the coalition with the National Party, the so-called Conservatives in New Zealand, was that they would have a fair dinkum Royal Commission. The terms of reference have been widened and extended, and they're now getting some pretty good stuff out from the Royal Commission. So that's important to understand that one person with the right facts can change a lot of things. So that gives us a lot of credit,
as we record this today, Friday. Somebody is approaching Winston Peters in New Zealand to have him come on the program, and I'm very confident we'll get him on. So,
well, you can also try for Farage as well, because if you look at Brexit, that was driven by Farage, and then once Brexit succeeded against all odds, it succeeded. That was a movement that was shooting at both the Tories and the Labor Party, who were both entrenched in the European Union, and it succeeded. And then afterwards, he said, right, wash my hands of politics again and go back to private enterprise. Yeah. And he gave Boris Johnson a warning. He said, mate, if you stuff this up, I'll be back. And so Boris Johnson made sure that they got out of Brexit, and the subsequent prime ministers did so too. And then prior to Brexit, there was the UKIP, United Kingdom, what was it, Independence Party? Anyway, UKIP. They came into being. Farage led that. That was on freedoms, bringing back freedom and liberty in the United Kingdom. The Tories moved away from their collectivist approach and to head him off. So UKIP drove the Conservative Party. Brexit drove the Conservative Party. And then afterwards, he was dissatisfied with the way they'd done things. And so he formed the Reform Party. Now the Reform Party is the leading Conservative party in the country. It looks like it could even get into office on its own in the next election. So what I'm saying is that many of their policies are very similar to Donald Trump. Many of their policies are very similar to One Nation's policies. And the reason is we don't copy Nigel. Nigel doesn't copy us. We don't copy Trump. He doesn't copy us. What Nigel does, what Trump does, what Pauline and I do is we go and listen to the people. And the people of Australia are very similar to the people in America, fundamentally, good human beings, very similar to the people in Britain. And they're telling us what to do. And that's why our policies are so similar. But the evidence is popping up around the world against catastrophic immigration to destroy cultures. And that because culture, God, you can get onto so many topics here. Culture is the glue that holds people together. Social cohesion. They're trying to destroy that, Hoodie, because you know that it's very important to be a part and identify yourself with being a part of a nation state. Families. There are two fundamental structures to human organization: the nation state and families. The United Nations is trying to destroy both. The conservatives in this country are trying to destroy both unknowingly. So what we've got to do is make sure that people wake up to what's going on. And so please spread the word about the globalists, what they're trying to do in this country. And that's the best way to nobble the Uni Party. There are people in the National Party, not many. There are even fewer as a percentage in the Liberal Party who are with us on these things, Hoodie. So we've got to reach out to them. Maybe the Nationals will break away from the Liberals. I don't think they will under a globalist like Littleproud, but under someone like Canavan, Barnaby Joyce, they might. You know, I've got to give a compliment to David Crisafulli. I was so disappointed in him as the opposition leader because he didn't stand for anything. He didn't put a stake in the ground. He was just a cloud, just a shadow. As Premier, he's done things that we have complimented him for publicly. He stood up. So that's good.
Well, put a flagpole up his rear end, Malcolm, and get him to do a bit more, will you?
Well, you know, it's to his credit that he's got a lot of work. If you look at Tony Abbott, you know, his problem was not Tony Abbott. His problem was the weak, gutless, moderates, wets in his party. They held him back.
Absolutely.
And and then you see people like Turnbull, who was supported by John Howard, doing so much damage. You see people like Morrison, who did so many unchristian things in this country, set us up for complete failure. And you look at that and you think, what's happened to the Liberal Party? What's happened to the National Party? But there are glimmers of hope in maybe Canavan, Barnaby Joyce, David Crisafulli, if he keeps going. But I'm not going to put a flag up his backside because we will just compliment him and we will criticize him when it's deserved.
Fair enough.
Well, you did bring God into it just then, so we might close this with a prayer. You've been generous with your time, as always, Malcolm Roberts. So let's bring this to a close with a prayer. Lord Father in heaven, we thank you that we can stand in the light of truth, Father God, and it's not hard to do that because you illuminate it so well. So please guide us, lead us, help us to restore some semblance of decency and compassion in our country as we move forward over the next 3 years, fighting what is clearly an anti-God and purely a communist Marxist agenda. We ask for this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, look, we've interviewed Trevor Loudon a couple of times now, the author of Comrade Prime Minister, and I watched a compelling documentary that he was part of called The Enemies Within the Church, and the evidence for communist Marxist takeover goes right the way through every institution, and it's so rife in the church. I'm talking about all denominations. We're in for one big ride, and we have to pull together as a nation and as a people.
Well, one thing would have been nice to have talked about it on air, but
we're still on air.
Oh, okay. One of the things that you know, when you know, Hoodie, and I think you do too, John, some things hit you like a ton of bricks. Some things hit you in a very subtle way. They just build up from within, but also it's from without. You know what I'm talking about. When I got into the Senate, I'd never been vocal on abortion. I'd never really thought about it. Something never really stirred me up. When I got into the Senate, something just said, wear this every day. So this little feet badge is the size of feet on a 70-day-old baby. I'm not going to call it a fetus because that's how the globalists use it to denigrate humans. It's not just a fetus. It's a baby. It's a real human, living human being. That's when the heart starts beating, I think. But anyway, so now I'm very strongly pro-life, and I wear this everywhere. So I've got it on all my jackets. So that's one thing. But then I was asked to speak at a Cherish Life rally against the abortion and people against the extended term abortion. You know, we can in this country have an abortion up to term. And when the abortion fails and a fully mature human is sitting there, a baby is sitting there, we can't give care to it. If the abortion fails in the sense that the baby is aborted, but it lives, then you can't give care to it. I mean, that is just inhuman. It's tossed in a cold stainless steel kidney dish.
Yep.
And I was speaking at Cherish Life rally a few weeks ago, and I just said, the real culprits of the decline of Australia is the gutless leadership of the mainstream churches, the Anglicans, the Catholics, the Baptists, the Uniting Church, because they have abdicated. And why have they abdicated? Because of the woke agenda. They've been fooled and conned by the woke agenda.
Yeah.
They've also become dependent. The churches do a fantastic job schooling people, do a fantastic job in aged care, do a fantastic job in health and hospitals. We'd crumble without them. But they have become dependent on government money. And so rather than thinking the government needs me to keep the hospital open, they say, oh, my goodness, the government will take away the money if we don't count out of them. So the churches have fallen aside. And this country is a fundamentally Christian country. Doesn't mean everyone has to be Christians, because we've got Section 116 in the Constitution that says you've got freedom of religion. And a true Christian, John, and true Christian, Hoody, would not want to impose Christianity on anyone, because Christianity comes from within.
Yeah.
And without, but it can't be forced. You can't force someone to believe in Jesus. You can't force someone to believe in God, because that's the complete opposite of having faith. That's control. You can't control a person in that way. But
well, Jesus didn't force anybody when he was alive on earth. So
exactly, he turned the other cheek. But the thing is that the first sentence of our Constitution contains a reference to Almighty God. It is clear that Australia Constitution has been founded on Christian principles. Those have been left to die. We've got a Prime Minister who says he's a Catholic, yet refused to take an oath of office. He took an affirmation. We've got Kevin Rudd reportedly being either Catholic or Anglican, and then changing his denomination, so because the other one was the more popular. Then we've got Scott Morrison, who proclaims to be a Christian, but look at his response in COVID. No Christian can come up with the response that he came up with. So we've got so much leadership who doesn't take notice of the church.
I can't believe there wasn't more leadership from the church, Malcolm. I mean, there was very little criticism of the Pope after he died, but I mean, he might as well have been the leader of the Greens. And I know I'll get in trouble for saying that, but I mean, fair dinkum.
Right.
Look at the churches. The churches, we could go to Ramadan, but we couldn't observe Easter. What? In a Christian country? And what's happened is the globalists, what they destroy is to get communists in place. And they have said this Hoody, they have said their unashamed aim is to put in place an unelected socialist global governance, which is basically to bring in a new world order. They're their words. What do they call it? The Great Reset. So what you have to do to get communism in place is to destroy families. Tick, that's one of the things they're trying to do. Destroy religion. Tick, that's one of the things they're trying to do. Steal property rights. Get central control, and then move that central control to global control. And that's what they're doing, central control, destroying our states. So these are all fundamental things that are going on, but our church leaders are weak and woke. And they wonder why good Australian people are not going to church anymore. What's the point?
Well, liberty of conscience is a paramount right, as should be separation of church and state. And they have marched in lockstep. They put money ahead of mission, and I'm gonna do a bit more talking about that in the near future as we talk about where this all started and how it came about. but communist infiltration, Marxist. Oh, get it?
You're right.
Well,
He's
the
been
wrong
struck
way.
by lightning.
I think someone was trying to tell me not to say what I'm about to say.
Go ahead and say it.
Look, it goes to the deepest, darkest crevices of everything from the papacy right the way through all the churches who now march in lockstep with the World Council of Churches. That's another W organisation, which is rotten to the core. So we've given away liberty of conscience. We've given away the right to maintain a separation between church and state, and we're going to pay a heavy price because these guys are flat out trying to cancel God and cancel morality. And that's where we're at. It's an awkward position and time is up. We got to go. We could do another show, Malcolm.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Hoodie.
Yeah, we'll do another show. But in the meantime, Johnny Larder, you've often been heard to say
You just couldn't make this stuff up.
you couldn't make this stuff up. Some people will accuse us of doing that, but Malcolm Roberts, congratulations to you. Congratulations on another senator in New South Wales. Well done.
NWA.
NWA. We're glad you expressed your exuberance on our program. And look,
And
Australia,
commiserations to Tasmania for electing Jackie Lambie. I mean, what were you nut jobs thinking? Oh, fair income. And Lee Hansen, you're welcome on our program anytime over the next
very
and Warren Pickering, our lead Senate candidate in Victoria, phenomenal, good ex-vet, ex-services, very, very solid man, very, very solid.
Well, don't forget Australia. This is a great country because you live in it, and if you love it, stand up for it. We trust you're enjoying this great round of interviews we're bringing you. Pastor Arthur Pulowski was incredible. Boy, if that doesn't stir your loins, nothing will. So get behind this country. It's worth the fight. Stay out of the trees. And thank you again, Malcolm Roberts. And we'll see you all next time on Club Grubbery. Bye for now.
Thanks, Hoodie. Thanks, John.